For those who have researched the lost ship of the Colorado Desert, the story of Nels Jacobson and Elmer Carver must be considered. Nels Jacobson was born in Sweden in March of 1864. He came to America when he was 21 years old. In 1897, he marries Jenny Marie Holmquist in Redlands, California. Little is known about Nels during this period. However, we do know he was driving an ox team in a lumber camp in the San Bernardino Mountains. In 1900, the Imperial Land Company was formed, opening up land in the Imperial Valley, and a land boom was on. It was reported in the Imperial Press that in October of 1901, Nels was in the city of Imperial, looking for land. In 1903, Nels had applied for a 320-acre parcel of land. The land was located 5 to 6 miles east of Imperial. Now comes 1907. This year is important because this is when a young Elmer Carver comes to work for Nels for a week or so. It seems that Mr. Jacobson, needing to conduct some business in the Los Angeles area, and not wanting to leave Mrs. Jacobson alone at the ranch, hired the young Mr. Carver to do chores and watch over the missus in his absence. Apparently, one day while doing his chores, he noticed the pig pen. The timbers that were made to construct the pen seemed quite large. Upon asking Mrs. Jacobson about the oddity of this pig pen, Mrs. Jacobson replied that the wood was taken from a boat out back of their house. Mrs. Jacobson told Elmer that was why Mr. Jacobson went to Los Angeles to sell the gems he had found. Being inquisitive, Elmer asked what she meant by this, so Mrs. Jacobson went to the bedroom and returned a few minutes later. In her hand was a small box, about 3 inches by 5 inches, and less than 2 inches thick. When she opened it, there on top of a black cloth were 3 small diamonds, an emerald, and a huge blood-red ruby. Apparently, after a bad windstorm, Nels found a boat covered in the sand, about 200 feet out back of their house. Keep in mind, between 1905 and 1907 is when the Salton Sea was formed. Could a boat or ship have made its way from the Colorado River down to the Jacobsons' land? Or maybe, a ship that was already buried in that area had some of the sand erode from it and became exposed? In 1907, the San Bernardino County Sun newspaper ran a story.
We passed one ranch of 320 acres, the owner of which sold at one time last fall a drove of hogs for which he received in a single check $9,000. Nels Jacobson, well known in San Bernardino, has a hog ranch, from which his sales run close to 5 figures annually.
If not for a 1964 interview with Mr. Carver, taken and recorded by Harold Wade and his wife, and the subsequent story in the Calico Press, the story would have ended there. In 1964, Elmer Carver would have been 75 years old. I have listened to the recordings and they appear real. With one exception. The recordings are on cassette tape. The portable cassette tape recorder wasn't available to the public in the United States until November of 1964. This discrepancy can be accounted for by simply transferring the interview from a reel-to-reel recorder to the cassette format. In the recordings you can hear background noise. It appears that Mr. Wade, his wife, Mr. Carver and Mrs. Carver were being recorded at maybe the kitchen table. Another discrepancy is that he states, Nels called or referred to his wife as Annie. His wife's name was Jenny Marie. Another was that Mrs. Jacobson was half the age of Nels. The age difference between Jenny and Nels were actually only 4 years. If you look at the 1910 census, the following people were living in the Jacobsons household, in the Imperial Township. There of course was Nels, age 45, and his wife, Jenny, age 42. There was also Johanna Holmquist, age 26. This was Jenny's sister, as she was listed as sister-in-law to Nels. There was also David Carlson, a boarder, age 38, listed as Swedish. Olin W. Larson, a boarder, age 23, Swedish, and Gustav Johnson, boarder, age 20, also Swedish. Now, could Mr. Carver have confused Mrs. Jacobson with Johanna, her sister? The Annie he refers to could have been Johanna. Their age difference was Nels 45, and Johanna was 26. That would be about half the age as Carver stated. Trying to remember what happened 57 years prior, Mr. Carver's memory may have been a little foggy, or just simply confused some facts. Mr. Carver could have been staying with Johanna, and not Mrs. Jacobson, and that crazy Swede could have been one of the boarders at the ranch. However, the recordings show a slow and methodical Mr. Carver making his statements. In May of 1910, it was reported that Nels Jacobson, one of the prosperous hog raisers of Imperial Valley, is planning a trip with his wife to his native country, Sweden, and will return in the fall. In September of 1910, apparently after his trip to Sweden, his home in Highland was broken into and ransacked. Jacobson stated that it seemed no money was taken. Maybe it wasn't money they were looking for, but something else of value, maybe something from the lost ship? In February of 1912, Jacobson sold his ranch in Imperial, California. It is this newspaper article which caused some ship researchers to think Nels found the ship. How can a hog farmer sell his ranch for $137,000? However, if you research land values of the time, and his livestock value, the account in the paper seems to be correct. Don't forget that Nels already had a successful citrus ranch in Highland, and now he was selling the one that he developed in Imperial. By the summer of 1916, Nels had bought another ranch in the Riviera area of Whittier. 3 years later, in 1919, Nels and his wife would sell the ranch in Highland, and would move to Riviera full-time. Nels Jacobson died in 1925. By the end of 1926, his estate is in probate. Apparently, there were 2 wills. His estate at that time was estimated to be around $500,000. By today's dollars, that would be over $7 million. Ironically, one of the main persons contesting the will, Johanna Hooks, Jenny's sister. Did Nels Jacobson discover the lost ship of the desert? Did Elmer Carver actually see and touch it, not realizing what it actually was? Or did Nels find what Charlie Klusker saw, but could never reach, some 37 years before, in 1870?